How would you define athleticism?
Well, for me, I actually define athleticism as a moving biological creature able to learn new movement.
Okay.
So how well do you adapt to your environment in order to get a job done? That to me is athleticism.
Hey, welcome back to the Athletes Podcast. This is episode 190 featuring Coach Mike G, also known as Mr. Do It Moving on Instagram, and also the co-founder of GBG Hoops. If you're not aware, Coach Mike has numerous clients in the NBA, has worked with the world's #1 tennis player, formerly Victoria Azarenka, as well as NFL athletes, NBA athletes. The guy is simply incredible at his craft. Coaching is an art, and it is something that Coach Mike has mastered. One of the best in the business. I was so honored to be able to feature him today. We had the honor of actually recording this in his home. Honor, respect are some of the words that come to mind when I think about the conversation that we had, and I can't wait for you folks to listen. Before we forget, I want you to remember that we have an athlete agreement. You listen to the Athletes Podcast. All we ask in return is that you hit the subscribe button. Whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, we appreciate it so much. We can't thank you enough for tuning in. Hope you enjoy the episode. Here we go.
Tyreek Hill, the cheetah is pretty cool.
That guy's an animal.
I'd want to be his number 2. So
I've seen you work with some incredible athletes. He's another kind of incredible specimen of an athlete.
yeah, he's on another level. I think there are levels to the different types of athletes that exist. It depends on how you define athleticism, but he, based off of measurables like speed, quickness, vertical jump, like these types of things, he's probably top tier.
How would you define athleticism?
Well, for me, I actually define athleticism as a moving biological creature able to learn new movement.
Okay.
So how well do you adapt to your environment in order to get a job done? That to me is athleticism.
True.
Because there are a lot of size, weight, height, speed people that aren't good at their sport. So is that really a good athlete? So for me, I always consider the skill of movement as a part of my definition of athleticism. So which would be a good question to ask, which sport houses the best athletes? I love this conversation.
I love this is where we're going.
Where does your mind go immediately? Who has the best athletes sport-wise?
When it comes to the definition you just provided,
Sure.
It's a combination of rugby, basketball.
Oh my gosh.
Like because there's different different skills required to perform those, and it's not just speed, it's not just weight,
Correct.
It's not just height. Like there's so many different variables involved. What's your answer?
Well, rugby is actually in there. So we're like here with it.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, basketball is not in there, but hockey is.
Oh, okay.
And the reason why is they're on ice. The skill of skating in itself is a high athletic endeavor, in my opinion. So hockey and rugby are probably my two highest athleticism.
I love hearing that because I was a hockey player growing up. A little tendy, though.
You must have been a great athlete.
I'm not going to say I was the best because I'm here talking to the athletes instead of actually playing. But, that's part of what inspired it. I think like hockey, just playing a ton of those sports growing up, I realized, hey, there's something to be said for people who are capable of achieving great things. And I want to try and dissect that and figure out what makes those people great. And, we're 190 conversations in. This one featuring Mike Guevara.
Guevara.
Yeah.
Did
I say? I was trying. It was close.
It's close. I'm not mad at the effort.
Considering my background, I'm like, I was close.
Which is why a lot of people just call me Mike G. Coach Mike G.
Coach Mike G, Mr. Do It Moving from GBG Hoops.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on the Athletes Podcast.
Absolutely. My man.
I'm excited for this conversation. I'm honored, really, to be able to film this here in your home gym studio. You got a sick setup here first off.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I feel like just this whole first kind of 15, 20 minutes has been amazing because we get introduced to your wife, Mocha. You got a team here going. You got a pretty good setup.
Yeah, so I love that you bring that up because as the forward-facing person within this entire operation, I feel like my wife doesn't get a lot of credit. And anytime I get an opportunity to give her credit, which you actually brought up, I take that wholeheartedly. She is definitely 50% of this operation. She does all the things that nobody really appreciates. And if it wasn't for her, this business would not be a business. So thank you for bringing that up. It is a team effort. We all have our jobs and we stay in our lanes and we do them really well. So that's kind of how this works.
Yeah, you pointed at Phoenix behind the camera, who is the 50% of the Athletes podcast. And it's, you know, I think behind every great man is typically a great woman. And I think it's underestimated what having a partner in something, in these endeavors that we tend to pursue leads towards. And I think it's good that you shout her out and make sure that she gets the attention.
Shout out to Phoenix, man. Good for you. When you guys pulled up, I told Hadar, like, oh, they're like us. They got like a little team going on. So that's really exciting to see.
It makes it so much better when you can share with someone, right?
Agreed.
And I think you're a testament to that over the years of just basically brute forcing your way into the sport world. Let's start back at the early days for Coach Mike G.
Yes.
Football player.
Yes. Believe it or not.
Who didn't have the measurables, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
Quoting you.
Correct.
Why don't we start off by having you share a bit of your athletic journey?
Yeah. So it could get quite wordy, so I'll try and spare the audience with that. But yeah, man, you know, if you guys are watching, you see what you see. I'm a 5'8" Asian dude. Not that many high level athletes that are Asian, let alone play American football. And also wasn't blessed with blazing speed. So in an era in which I grew up, the spread offense was just starting to get more prevalent and popular, which is like the Wes Welkers of the world and Julian Edelmans and these types of receivers. So my role wasn't quite carved into the realm of football, so I had to figure out how to make my mark. Why did I love football so much? I have no idea. My dad loved it. We were Raider fans growing up, always around it, but just identified with it the most. It wasn't tennis, wasn't soccer, tried all those sports. It was football. So that's what I leaned into the most. And because I was always second guessed based off of the eye test, which is people just judging you based on how you look, I had to close the competitive edge somehow, or the competitive gap somehow, which was training. It was lifting weights. It was doing my own speed training. You remember the jump soles with the big things on the forefoot, like wearing those and training in those and figuring out ways, how can I close the competitive gap so that people don't judge me based off of my appearance and more or less my skill. And that's how I fell in love with strength and conditioning. That hard work and that fire and desire to be the best put me in the category of earning a Division II scholarship. I did play on scholarship, so I was pretty decent, right? But my dream of playing in the NFL was soon struck down when I started to train NFL athletes. And I would see these, 6'2", 6'4" receivers just like me, 220 pounds, running faster than me, moving quicker than me, stronger than me. So it was a very good reality check when I was working with these athletes and seeing like what it really took physically to be in this competitive realm. And I was okay with that. I knew that my path was to be a coach based off of my motivation, my drive, my willingness to be emotional and spirited all the time. It just boded well. I had the qualities to be a good strength coach. Considering my journey as an athlete, always lifting, always running, always training, made sense. And, competed at the highest level I feel like I could. I feel like I tapped into my most highest ceiling, had a great career, and became what I was supposed to, which was a coach.
The story just gives me chills because I did not achieve a college scholarship, but I realized at a young age that I was not making the NFL, NBA, NHL insert any other professional sport league, but there's areas where you can impact the game positively outside of being the player.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that you've done extremely well, obviously training hundreds, probably thousands of athletes now to date. Who instilled those qualities?
I'd have to always begin with my dad. He was 20 years Army, United States Army. So, you know, with his own training, he brought to our household discipline, honor, respect, routine, you know, things that just go hand in hand with being an athlete. And truthfully, outside of that, you just grasp onto important people that come into your life, teammates. One coach in specific was a guy by the name of Mark Survey, who was my first junior college coach. He's the one that inspired the emotional leadership, the spiritedness, the competitive drive. He's the one that really allowed my passion to breathe from a vocal standpoint. Okay. He gave me a voice, and he encouraged me to have that voice. And as an Asian person in this sport, it was a surprise to a lot of people, but he encouraged me to do that. I was very physical, as you probably know from hockey, but I didn't shy away from contact. So he loved that about me, and he it's just one of these special types of coaches that you want to run through a wall for. And he was like that. And he allowed me to really grow from that standpoint. So I would say my dad and Survey, I always said that I wanted to coach like Mark Survey, who is a head football coach now still to this day. And I always modeled the way I approached athletes after him.
No way. Okay.
Because he always found a way to bring out the best in his athletes, including myself. So the regiment, honor, respect, discipline piece, my dad for sure. And then like the actual coaching qualities of like being a player's coach and motivating and inspiring, definitely Mark Survey for sure.
Sorry, 1 second. Just cautious of your bottom fingers on the cord. Sometimes it makes it a bit staticky.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
That's okay. I just noticed that, and that's all.
We had it in previous episodes.
Yeah, once in a while it just adds a bit of static.
Yeah, because I for sure was touching that thing, so I will
So just make sure
be more
it's
mindful.
still properly there, and then you're good.
Perfect. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, continue.
The beauty.
Out of the reflection.
Oh,
I did
right.
that in the last video. Reflection the whole time.
Yeah. Were you quiet before that, or what did Coach Survey still like? What did he say to you to get
man,
that?
Like, I was never afraid to be vocal on the field because, you know, American football is very passionate. Like it's probably the most emotional space I've ever been in my life. Like, you know, you cry, you get angry, everything in the same game. You know, I used to like cry before the Star Spangled Banner. That's how like emotionally charged it was. I'm not crying because I'm sad or nervous. Like I'm just like so charged up. But when it came to like the locker room, you know what I mean? Or my teammates, or like he just encouraged me to like, you know, you have something to say it. You know, these guys believe in you and trust you because you lead by example. You know, you're the first one to go into the foxhole, if you will, in terms of like blocking the biggest dude on the field or blowing up a wedge or whatever it was back then. You know, football was still really, really physical. I mean, it's still physical, but like less rules.
For sure.
And
most sports now.
You know, right, exactly.
Except for basketball, actually, it's gone the other way.
Facts. Yeah. So he just saw that in me, and he just brought that into like under a magnifying glass. You know, he amplified it. And I think my teammates also gave me inspiration to continue to grow. Like, go ahead, Mike G, talk. You got something to say it. Yeah. And I always had something good to say because I always led from my actions on the field. And people would listen and people would follow. So from that point on, that gave me the confidence to be that person. And like even my senior year at Ferris State University, shout out to the Bulldogs, I was awarded the most spirited award, which is the most emotional leader person on the entire team.
That's sick.
And that was a really cool award for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's a testament to it. Who was your favorite Raider growing up?
Tim Brown.
Oh, okay.
Tim Brown. So wide receiver, just like me, number 81. And just remember what's the word? Just wanted to be like him so much. You know, the way he would tape his fingers, the way he would always catch the ball with his hands, the way he approached the game. I just loved the way he played the game. So that was my favorite Raider for sure.
I always like bringing up who athletes who inspired them, who they're trying to emulate. So I'm always curious because now you're working with a ton of athletes on a daily basis. You get to see these incredible specimens. And, to me, I'm like, there's specific things that make each person unique. And obviously it's your spirit, it's your energy, it's your ability to coach. Did that transfer into CSUN when you went there for school?
So for those who don't know, I competed my athletic college eligibility at Ferris. I exhausted that, finished my competitive sports clock, but didn't finish my degree. So once I was done playing football at Ferris, I didn't want to stay in Michigan.
Okay.
No offense to no offense to those that live in Michigan or are from Michigan, but I wanted to be home. I wanted to be back in LA. So that's when I transferred from Ferris to finish my degree at CSUN. So once I got to CSUN, it was just like head down, nose in the books. I don't care about anything but finishing this degree and getting into the workforce, which was coaching. So that's kind of what that was. It was just kind of just me bridging the period from competing as an athlete to coaching. I still had to finish my coursework. I didn't finish at Ferris, so that's where I finished at, was at CSUN. So I didn't compete at CSUN.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like that transition is important because people, especially at the end of their athletic career, what is it? Less than 1% of people who are playing at that college level make it to the pro level.
Sure.
And one of the things we talked about earlier about educating, entertaining, inspiring is like, even if you don't make it to that pro level, there's things you can do to impact the game elsewise. And like you were able to obviously transition flawlessly into your current career now, right?
Seamlessly. You're right. You know, we played organized sports growing up, and there's a lot of tools and gifts that come from that have nothing to do with the sport. And that's exactly what that was for me, no question about it. I mean, because of the fact that I was ordained to go down this path of being counted out, always having a chip on my shoulder, blah, 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 to developing all these qualities that turned me into a coach. That was the most amazing journey that I could have ever endured because it gave me my passion in my career, which is not work, right? You don't work a day in your life if you love what you do. And I haven't worked since 2006.
Dang.
Because I've been coaching since 2006. And these are one of these things that, you know, I try to educate a lot of coaches that are up and coming and on their journey as well. Is like, it took me a good 8 to 11 years to truly start to make a quality living from a financial perspective. Like it was a long journey, but it didn't feel long because I enjoyed going to work every single day. I enjoyed changing people's lives for the better and inspiring them. So, you know, they always ask, how did you get to where you're at? How do you work with such amazing athletes? And, you know, a lot of it is patience, time, and just investing the sweat equity into your craft. And over time, if you truly are following your passion and your heart, everything else takes care of itself. And I really believe in that, and I'm a testament to it. But don't get into strength and conditioning or performance thinking that it's a high-paying job, because it's simply not. It's simply not. You know, we do it because we love to coach, and that's really the bottom foundation underlying factor.
Yeah, and you've been consistent, like you said, since 06. This is what you've been doing: coaching, training, impacting people positively. Talk to me about that chip on your shoulder, because I think a lot of athletes have that. Some do, some don't. And I think some people are always of the opinion that you don't want to have that for too long. But I think, like, I've got that. There's a reason why people see success after having that.
Hell yeah. I mean, I think there's levels to everything. And, you know, that boulder could be excessive if you allow it to. If it's affecting your relationships and how you approach people and how you interact with your teammates and your coaches, of course, that's going to hurt you versus help you. But that chip for me was just consistently being counted out as a small Asian wide receiver or football player. And that, you know, that was difficult. That was difficult to handle. And I didn't have anybody that looked like me to use as, the North Star. I never had any North Star.
Damn.
Who looks like me that's doing what I want to do and helping me get through this? Nobody. So, my dad always just taught me, like, don't take shit from nobody. I hope I can curse. Sorry. And, have honor, but also don't tolerate disrespect. And he always just instilled that in me, and I use that as a badge of courage, as my North Star, to continue to fight and to continue to do what I felt was my true passion and my true path. And I just love the game. And if that meant hitting the biggest dude on the field, I'm going to do it. If that meant, blocking, I'll do it. Whatever it was, whatever the job that needed to be done was, I was willing to do it. And, you can call it what you may. I think I was born that way. I really just think that God gave me a little bit of extra courage to just stand up to whoever, whenever, wherever.
I can relate. I was the chubby white kid growing up.
Chubby?
A little bit. Yeah, a little heavier, younger. I realized what a carbohydrate was after high school, and that definitely helped. But, I mean, I always am curious because I think people got to realize what makes people tick sometimes. And it's cool to know, what got people started and how they get on their journey. And I want to know, the start of your journey was really in tennis, surprisingly.
Yes.
For some people to know, despite the fact you're mainly ball players now.
Yep.
You're working with the top tennis player in the world.
At one point, yes. Not everyone can say they were number one in the world.
Gold medals. That's pretty legit.
Yeah, so shortly after I joined my first real gym, a part of the staff called The Factory in Westlake Village, California, Victoria Azarenka, who was number 5 in the world at the time, number 5. So she wasn't like from the bottom and then all of a sudden she went to number 1. No, she was number 5. So she was already amazing. She comes into the gym and she's observing me train a bunch of high school kids, right? So she comes up to me, and she's like, so what are your thoughts on traveling and training me? And I'm like, me? And she's like, no, yeah, you. And I'm like, I'm 26 at the time.
Damn.
I just broke into the coaching stratosphere. I'm just happy to be there, right? I'm just happy to be around. So obviously I'm like, of course, like, hello, yes. So she's like, I'll give you 1 week. Let's work together. I'm in LA for a week, and let's see how it goes. And if the chemistry is there, we'll talk further. Dave, I took 2 days for her to offer me a contract. 2 days, yep. So I did a training session in the gym, and then I went to the tennis court and warmed her up. And she was like, yeah, nah, you're the guy. I want to put you on salary. I want you to travel with me 20 weeks a year. We're going to be going to Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Spain, blah, 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 everywhere, New York. And, for a guy who didn't have a wife or kids, was like a dream job.
For sure.
So it changed my life. I'm forever grateful for her and her team for giving me an opportunity. And we were able to do really cool things, like be number 1 in the world for 370-something days.
No big deal.
Win 2 Australian Opens, couple gold medals. Like, we did some really cool things. And I can valiantly say I was a part of that. So it was really cool.
So what is it that happened in those first 2 days that sold her on it? Was there one thing or anything in particular that you're just like, I got to do this, make sure she knows I'm the real deal?
So her coach mentioned that she wanted somebody that was not in the tennis world. And that was purposefully because it's kind of like every sport. They all reuse and recycle the same people. This coach goes to this team, and it was very similar to that. So she was just like, I want someone fresh. I want somebody that isn't a part of this, very small, tight-knit community and bubble. So I was already winning because of that. I come from a different sport. And, I'm just a young, super energized, happy to be there kid ready to do anything and everything. You know what I mean? Just extremely motivated. And within the actual training sessions, we did a bunch of games. So I learned early through my inspirations as coaches and whatnot, like strength coaches, that gamifying warm-ups and certain drills really allow the athlete to engage mentally. So I used that as a secret weapon, and she loved all the games. I tapped into like what she really, really liked, and just hit that button over and over and over and over again. So she felt like she was getting a great workout, but also she was having fun doing it. And that's the key. I think training doesn't have to always be difficult. It could be difficult and fun.
Yeah, and that passion shines through in your content on social media. Like, I love just scrolling through your page and just seeing not only the people you're working with, but just how you're able to control the room and you're dictating the energy that's being introduced. And like that on its own is a skill, like you talked about. And I think that's what keeps drawing guys in, like Freddie, Steady Freddie, as you call him.
Yes, sir.
Jalen Green. Like, favorite moment from that Victoria Azarenka kind of experience?
Whole experience? Boy, I mean, the most memorable, favorite, it's difficult because it's a lot of time, but the most memorable was when we lost to Serena Williams in the U.S. Open final the second time. Serena gets up big, first set like 6-1, destroys her in the first set. So we're like, oh, damn it. Here we go. Because it's Serena, right? She fights her butt back, wins the second set 6-2. Now we're in the third set. Now it's like, oh, man. Now, like, all of the old football emotions are coming back. You know what I mean? Because it feels that energetic, that electric. And we end up losing, I think, in a tie break. And it was, like, heartbreaking. But at the same time, it was such a fight, because no one bet on her, Victoria. Obviously, Serena's at home in the United States. Everyone in that entire arena, 20,000 people were cheering for Serena, except for us. So it just felt like an against all odds type feel. Again, that chip on your shoulder type feel. Like, I know this space. I'm very familiar with it, and we're going to stand up, and we're going to punch him in the face. And she did that. Unfortunately, it wasn't the knockout blow. We were short, but that whole moment for me was one of the most inspiring and memorable moments in my athletic career, let alone as an athlete or coach. Like, it was the emotions I felt, even though I wasn't playing, was undescribable.
We talk about supplements all the time. One of the things that I incorporate every single day, especially when we're in LA, is Rooted. If you haven't checked it out yet, use the code AP20 for 20% off your very own Rooted. It's multivitamin, it's hydration, it's electrolytes, it's everything you need every single day. Go check it out, rootd.com, and use the code AP20 for 20% off your very own prenatal, men's, women's options, whatever you need. Now let's get back to the show. And then people think that you went straight from tennis, working with her, to Drew. And like, there's a lot of time in there. Little UCLA action, right? If I remember correctly.
No, I never was with the school. I actually never was attached to any company until my first couple years in coaching. Then I became independent. Then I was with Victoria. Then I owned a gym space in between Victoria and Drew. And then finally Drew brought me to the Pelicans. So there was this period of time where I actually owned a space.
Wasn't it Drew's girl at the time, though, that connected you guys?
Drew's girlfriend at the time, Lauren Cheney, who went to UCLA.
That's okay. So that's where I was putting that two in together.
But she was already left UCLA, was with the U.S. national team soccer, had already won a World Cup. Like, she was already way into her professional career. But I actually started with Lauren first before I worked with Drew. And Lauren is the one that said, yo, Drew, next summer you might want to work with this dude. Like, he's really good. I killed all of my fitness tests. Now, I'm not going to take credit for that because she was probably by far pound for pound the best athlete I had ever worked with. Pound for pound. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Shout out to her and her amazing athleticism. But she's the one that kind of brought it to Drew's attention. And he gave me a chance, and the rest is kind of history. Pretty much everyone knows that story.
Dude, marathon man, he's got some miles under his belt, and
Yes,
you kept him in some serious shape.
Yes.
What? Because it was 3+ years you guys were working together. You
Yep.
were on the road.
Yep.
Like you said, people know the story. They can probably search that up. But I mean, most memorable moments from that experience that you'd love to share?
Love to share. This one comes up all the time for me because people ask me this question. So my first year with the team, went to the playoffs, swept Portland. That was when Dame had a really tough time with the Pelicans defense. And Drew was obviously the head of the spear of this one. You know, they blitzed the hell out of him. He couldn't do anything. We ended up sweeping him. That was dope. So here comes Golden State, number 1 seed. They end up winning the championship, obviously. So no small order, right? Very tall task. But they sweep us in a gentleman's sweep 4-1. And Drew had just been named the Iron Man of the league because he traveled the most miles. They have this tracking system. I forget what it's called, damn it. But anyways, it literally tracks distance traveled for every single NBA athlete. If you step foot on that court, they have these 3D cameras that can literally track how far people travel throughout the season. He had the most miles. He played the most minutes, right? So the last game, we get swept. We lose the series in Game 5 in Golden State, and I'm cooling him down. We're doing our stretches. We're doing our percussion. And I'm like, well, how do you feel? And he's like, and he just finished playing 48 minutes, didn't come out. 48 minutes, stayed in the entire game. He said, like, I can keep going. And that was the moment in which, I knew that there's something to this training thing. There's something to it. Like, I know that we're making a benefit, but damn. Yeah. And B, we can actually peak before the playoffs. Like, it's not just get to the playoffs. It's not survive the season. It's literally we're building up to peak for April and May. And that's what we did. And, you know, did I systematically do that on purpose? No. But, like, the work we were doing throughout the season was clearly getting him ready to peak at the right moment. And now every athlete I work with, mainly Spencer and Fred VanVleet, that's our goal, is to peak for playoff time.
It's interesting because there's so much around load management and guys spending time training, how much training, off training during the season, off season. Like, I mean, you hear that guy playing 48 minutes, having played the most time, traveled the most distance. Like, to me, I'm like, okay, so I understand the load management aspect to some degree, but obviously you're breaking that stigma down.
I think that we have to understand all the variables that are going into this equation. Okay, so I was Drew's little Asian shadow. You know, he was going to all these cities. He had, you know, I was there with him at home. I was there with him. I'm seeing him before games, after games. Like, I'm literally providing care, strength training, and treatment for him, you know, stretching and things that fall within the realm that I'm qualified to do. I'm not a PT. I'm not doing manipulations or chiro work or anything like that nature. That's not my skill set. But I just think that there's a lot of value in cooling down. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? There's a lot of value in long duration stretching. There's a lot of value in down regulating the system. And that's basically, you know, like when you play your games as a hockey player and you just come off the ice, you're amped up. There's a lot of value in calming that nervous system down and getting you into a rest digest type mode so that you can sleep better, so that you can recover better. Like, this is science, and that's what I was there for. And I would make sure that he got that treatment every single day, in conjunction with smart weight training, with things like blood flow restriction and all the different strategies that I can think that was very applicable in our situation. Load management is a thing as long as you understand the picture in its totality. What's their nutrition like? How are they sleeping? Do they like to go out? Do they drink alcohol? Do they eat sugar? Like all of these things. And because I'm around so much, I was able to understand the picture. True. And I was able to imply and input quality strategy based off of that information. So as fans, when you guys see the word or phrase load management, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. All you hear is, my fantasy team is messed up. I'm not going to get my player in because of load management. Well, we don't know what's going on. And because I was there all the time, he didn't really need load management because we were very, very strategic on what we did on a day in, day out basis.
Well, and because fans, all they see is the 48 minutes of time on the court. And they forget that these are human beings at the end of the day. And they have lives outside and they want to have social outings and they want to have relationships and they want to go out and do these things. And those are important in life to ensure that you're living a balanced, healthy life.
Absolutely.
But there's something to be said for ensuring that you're primed and ready to perform for your job, because at the end of the day, that's what you're trying to do. So
yes, sir.
Why are people implementing this the way Drew was for 3 years?
Yeah, that's a good question. But I think a lot of it, so this is a very layered onion to peel, because having a guy, my number one priority was Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
So there could be some ruffled feathers there. So those are difficult waters to navigate. As a GM, as a head coach, as a medical director, like how am I going to organize the environment so that everyone is happy, but mainly my player? Now I got to worry about this medical staff who feels a certain type of way about what this person's doing with their athlete. A lot of ego. And I get all those dynamics, and those are real dynamics that you have to address and deal with. So to have a guy, it's very difficult for it to be a very symbiotic relationship between medical staff, performance staff, and then this dude who's Drew's guy, right? So that was difficult, right? That wasn't a walk in the park. Like there were some social dynamics that we had to manipulate and manage and figure out how to make work.
Care to share some of the hardest parts?
Just truth be told, sometimes certain pros, certain professionals, whatever physical therapist, strength and conditioning, they would feel a certain type of way about their number one athlete going to somebody else. And that's just what it is. And I'm okay with disclosing that because it happens all the time. Yeah. And I get it. So the first thing you try to do is you try to create a safe space for yourself. You go in and you say, hey, my name is Mike G. I'm here with Drew. I'm trying to do the best that I can to service him. Whatever it is that you need me to do or want from me, please let me know. Like, I'm not here to take anyone's job. I'm here for one purpose and one purpose only. So, you try to create this environment that's safe. But, sometimes that isn't enough, right? And you just kind of navigate as you see fit and try not to let your ego get in the way, because we all have ego. And that's something that I've really grown from, is just trying to figure out how to remove my personal emotions out of every situation. Yeah. Because people are people, and that's not going to affect what I'm skilled at. I'm not going to let that disrupt that.
Well, and I think it helps that you're a humble guy, despite being loud, proud of what you're capable of doing.
That's another thing that could be misinterpreted.
Right?
People misinterpret that loud proudness for threat.
Yeah.
And, the same thing that makes you laugh makes you cry. And I'm good at what I'm good at because of my loud, proud, hoarse voice energy, right? Like, it's just the way it is. Yeah. It makes me go. And some people take threat to that. So I don't know how to really tone that down either. You know what I mean? So it's tough.
You're walking a fine line. You're doing a good job. Clearly it worked 3+ years. Obviously you got, like you said, marathon man. When did GBG hoops come into the equation? Because obviously not everyone can have a guy. 15-year-olds, 12-year-olds watching this
Facts.
can't have a guy.
Facts.
That's why we got GBG Hoops, right?
So GBG Hoops stands for Greatness Breeds Greatness Hoops. And just a short story behind that phrase, Anthony Davis is the actual creditor? Do I credit? I give credit to him. Whoa. And I used to always say greatness breeds greatness all the time. Mid-set, greatness breeds greatness. Come on, let's go. Whatever. You're the leader of the team. We got to see you work hard. And all of a sudden he comes in saying GBG, GBG, and I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? Because I never coined it as GBG. I coined it as greatness breeds greatness. And he's like, greatness breeds greatness. I'm like, I think I like that.
Yeah.
So I married my dream girl, and she's a creative, and she developed this logo. She sat down and made it on the computer, and basically, if you guys can see, the G's are mirroring each other.
Yeah.
And the phrase greatness breeds greatness just speaks to iron sharpening iron. When I'm my best self, I'm going to lift you and elevate you to being your best self. It's just the laws of nature. Mm-hmm. Anytime you're around someone that's like about their stuff and they're getting it done, you want to pick it up.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen time and time again. And that's the moment, the epitome of what I stand for. Like, my job is to uplift and elevate. So that's what this logo is. You see this bar here, it just represents elevation. We're picking each other up. You see the wings, we're flying away because going up is the way we're gonna go. And this is a Chinese symbol for strength. It just looks really cool. I'm not Chinese, actually, but wifey, she wanted that there, so it made sense. So yeah, that's what GBG is. That's the story behind the logo. And the actual app project began during pandemic. You know, everybody was shut down, had a whole lot of time on our hands. We started shooting, we started practicing, we started doing little art projects on camera. There's a lot of cool stuff on her page where we would, you know, film videos at like 10 o'clock at night in New Orleans.
Jeez.
In the empty streets of New Orleans, because it was just a really cool, visually appealing setup. And that just inspired us to start the process. And then we started to just pick a space and film so many exercises where I'd, you know, get on the camera, perform my exercise, and stumble over my words. And do it again, and do it again, and do it again, and just keep honing the level in which I'm at right now. I feel like I can still get better. I definitely can get better, but I was terrible at the time. Just being a presence on camera is completely different.
Yeah. And
she used to work her name was Hadaya. Hadaya used to work for Complex in scenic design, and she used to work with producers and directors and videographers. So she has this very elite perspective of what it should look like. Yeah. And that used to annoy the hell out of me, because I'm like, Hadaya, it doesn't need to be perfect. If you want me to do this, yes, it does.
You put your stamp of approval on it.
Yeah, she's like, I'm not going to accept regular. Like, if you want me to do this, you need to do it my way. And I'm like, you're right.
Greatness breeds greatness.
Greatness breeds greatness. So she's the one that really helped me develop my ability to speak on camera, my presence, you know, everything in terms of just visual appeal as the app started to develop. And then, you know, just week by week, month by month, we just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then finally we pulled the trigger 2021 February. So we've been live for 2 years.
Damn.
Yeah.
Everything you ever dreamed of?
It's a work in progress to this day. And I think that for those who do have the app and are subscribers, thank you. But there are many improvements to be had. And we understand that. But that's the beauty of tech, right? It's a forever evolving field. And I'm happy that that is the case. So we're actually in development of part 2, which is going to be off the chain. So I can't wait for everyone to see it.
I think that's the beauty of life. Like, I've heard you talk on other podcasts and say, like, you're a constant learner. You're never going to stop learning. It's the same way with apps. It's the same way with working with people. You're still going to learn about new athletes, new ways to train, new modalities.
Correct.
You're starting with isometrics because that works well to warm guys up. Yeah. Like, there's always levels that can be achieved. And to your point, you're always trying to raise that bar, right?
Always trying to elevate. That's right. 100%.
What was that like for COVID for you going through that process? You're developing an app, you're working with players. How do you spread out your day? What does the bandwidth look like? What does a day in the life for Coach Mike G look like?
During COVID? Or just
Let's
now?
just do in general now. I don't know.
Okay,
why
yeah.
included
So
COVID. Screw that. Let's get rid of COVID.
Yeah. COVID was a tough time, but it was also a very flourishing time for us. But now it kind of depends on the time of year. But since we're in summer, we'll go through a day in the life of the summertime. The summertime is the most busy time for me training wise. This is when all the NBA athletes come back home or come to LA to train. This is when I'm literally up from 4 a.m. until I'm up at 4. I'm training from 6:30 a.m. until 2:30 p.m. straight. No break, no lunch, no nothing. You know, I do have an assistant. His name is Daniel Ciccolini, and he has been a godsend from that standpoint of being able to step away and take a bite of a banana or whatever it is.
Take a 5-minute nap if you
know
need
what I'm saying?
it.
A little snooze. But for the most part, it's literally 6:30 to 2:30 straight, trying to bring the same energy and intensity to every single session, whether it's the first one or the last. And that happens Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Damn.
Yes, sir. So very, very, very voluminous in nature. But again, like the field is where I belong.
Yeah.
Like I understand how to scale. I understand the business aspect of this. And I understand in order to create freedom, which is time, you need to have something digital. But where I am my best is in the field, and that's training people. So this is where I kind of get the itch scratched.
I was just going to say, you need that itch scratch.
Yep. Fortunately for us, we get a lot of content during these times as well. These athletes are graceful enough to allow us to bring cameras in session. So that helps promote the app without selling, as you know. So it's just a really cool time to just get back into what I'm really here for, which is coach, and change the horizon for these athletes, athletically, physically, mentally, in every single way that I can, because I'm with them so much. I'm able to influence so many different things that you really see these people change and evolve in front of your eyes. And then they go off and have hopefully good seasons, and then you're just so happy and proud that you were a part of that process.
Well, and you get them at the end of their season where they're probably battered down, beat, broken, and then you bring them back to this great state at the beginning of the season. You see this huge transition. That's got to just feel good on its own.
Yes.
You mentioned making up at 4 a.m., starting training at 6:30. What happens between 4 and 6:30?
Yeah, man. So, like, this energy is not manufactured. Like, there's nothing synthetic about it. But in order for it to be right, I have a process that I need to commit to in order for myself to be ready to go for that first session, which was Spencer Dinwiddie every single day. And in order to be Coach Mike G, in order to provide the best experience possible, who I am is a part of that. And if I'm not that person because I'm tired or whatever the superlative you want to place onto that is, I'm robbing the athlete of their experience, and that's not okay. So I wake up at 4. The first thing I do is get into a cold plunge.
Jeez.
I don't care if it's cold outside, if it's hot outside, whatever, how warm and comfortable I am. I'm always a firm believer of seeking out discomfort so that when unnecessary, unfortunate events happen to you, you're a little more callous to them. You're a little more ready for them. You're a little more calm and at peace. So I seek out discomfort right away. First thing I do, get in the cold plunge, neck deep, 45 degrees Fahrenheit. What's that in Celsius?
Divide it by, double it, now 30. So it's like, divided by 2, mental math in front of a camera, 22 and a half. I don't know. It's cold.
So it's cold.
When did you start? When did you start doing that?
So I actually started to seek out like cold with. Oh dang it! There was a book that I read that just went through the amazing benefits of cold water exposure, cold water immersion, cold showers.
Yeah.
Damn, I'm not doing them a service.
That's okay. We'll find it. We'll talk about it. We'll reference it.
Yeah, we'll reference it.
Here.
But, that happened about three years ago, but I wasn't as consistent.
Okay.
But then I started to go into Stoicism and Greek philosophers, Marcus Aurelius, and they all talk about how being able to seek out discomfort is what we should be doing on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. So that just further myelinated what I wanted to do based off of just being the best that I could. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Like 100%. I just attached myself to these things, and now, Hadaya rolls her eyes every time I quote Marcus Aurelius. She's just like, here we go again with this Stoicism crap.
She does the same. It's okay.
But it just works for me. Like, I'm not saying that everyone needs to be stoic, but it works for me. And in order for me to do my job at a high level, this is what works. So I'm in the cold plunge. I have a cold plunge. Shout out to Cold Plunge. Thank you so much. The plunge. Everyone should go get one and use my code.
There you go.
But I'm in there 2 to 3 minutes, sometimes 2, sometimes 3.
Yeah.
I'm either listening to a podcast or an audiobook or my breathing. And then I go up and I'll make morning drinks for my wife and I. We do matcha lattes. I'll throw some Ceylon cinnamon, some lion's mane mushroom, like whip them up real nice. Put a little honey in hers, but not in mine because I'm still trying to maintain ketosis. And then I'll do like an element. We talked about element earlier, like a salt water. And then I'll get on my computer and do some programming because I program best. My mind is most sharp in the morning time. So I'll be able to knock out some programming. Then I'm on my way. And the drive is like a 45-minute drive from here to Calabasas. So in that 45 minutes, I'm listening to more audiobooks. Like, I used to be really big into music, maybe 10 years ago. But now, because I'm so into self-improvement and self-awareness, that I'm now listening to things that help me. Yeah. Like, music does help me, but not from a state of mind perspective, not from a mindfulness perspective. It helps my mood, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't necessarily help me as a human.
Know exactly how you're talking.
So I'm listening to less music, which is unfortunate, but because music is beautiful. But this is just my process, and this is kind of what works for me, and that's why I wake up 2.5 hours prior to the session.
What time are you going to sleep?
So that's another part. So, like, as a married man, you need to fill your marriage bucket.
Damn right.
And because Hadaya doesn't wake up at 4:30, she's not going to bed at 9:30 or at 9 for that matter. She's up till probably 10, 11, 12. So what's the happy median, right? Because usually at nighttime is when we spend our quality time together. We have dinner together. We watch something together. We talk together. So, probably 10 to 10:30 is acceptable for her. Okay. I'd like to be in bed by 9. Yeah. But for her, 10:30 is more acceptable. So that's the compromise.
Do you do any mouth taping, any nasal breathing on that?
So the Prisoner tape is dope. I actually read that book by
James
Nestor.
Nestor,
Breathe.
Sick book. I'm working on getting him on.
Great book, and I can't wait till you get him on. Thank you, sir, for that book.
Life-changing. People don't realize it. Nasal breathing, man.
So messed around with it with training, with the tape, but never delved into sleeping because I actually sleep with my mouth closed.
Okay.
I'm not a big snorer. My wife could attest to that. And if anything, for the sleep piece, I started doing magnesium.
Game changer also.
What? I mean, I see you wearing the Whoop.
Yeah.
My HRV at least plus 20.
Damn.
Since the magnesium.
They're going to clip this and use this as a promo.
I'm cool with that because I've been doing work with Whoop for since they first came out. I'm no longer affiliated, but they're they're good people. They're a great product. I don't care. Hey, free promotion, do your thing. Cause that information is key, right? Knowledge is power.
It is. And there's so much data now out there for people to consume. It's okay, what am I actually looking at and tracking and making sure that I'm not just overload of information.
It's just numbers at the end of the day.
Right?
Unless you know what you're looking at.
So magnesium, that's key. That's huge. I mean, what should, we talked about trying to help that next gen, what are some things that young athletes should be doing other than getting the GBG Hoops app to ensure that they're seeing success when it comes
Sure.
to their athletic performance?
Well, when this question comes up, and it comes up often, you know, I always divert to the low-hanging fruit. And we briefly spoke about sleep, but understand, people, that sleep is the most effective recovery tool known to man. It's not a device. It's not, you know, cold plunge. It's not, you know, like all these tools, which are great tools. It is sleep. It is the not only the quantity, but the quality of sleep that is truly going to help you recover at your best to be ready to take on stress for the next day. So how do we look at sleep hygiene? How are we educating our young athletes about sleep hygiene, about screens and blue light, eating late, which I too need to get better at, because that's probably the worst thing that I do from that behavior, that sleep hygiene, is I always eat late because
Quality time with the gal.
quality time with the wife, and we eat late, and now I'm going to bed with an empty stomach, so now my body's working on digesting my food versus sleeping. So, you know, just things like applicable. 2 hours before you go to bed, no more food. So if you plan on going to bed at 11 or 10, stop eating at 7 or 8. Make the room as dark as possible. Make the room as cold as you can tolerate. So, you know, they say 68 to 71 degrees Fahrenheit. Take a nice warm bath or shower prior to getting in bed. And then the most important piece of all is reducing screen time an hour before your targeted bedtime. Because, you know, cell phones, laptops, and TVs literally kick on the awake hormones.
Yeah.
And now you're sending confusing signals to your brain, and now we can't fall into those very valuable stages of sleep.
You rocking blue light blockers at night?
I used to, but now we just kind of figure out like the filters when we can, and then do as I say, not as I do. People, we try to watch TV from afar. But no, I mean, it's true though. It's true. Like, I mean, I guess what I find most frequently is kids are on their phones.
Always.
That's number one, or laptops right here.
Yeah.
So let's back up from our screens and let's try to really understand that that's killing our ability to fall asleep because of the dopamine.
Yeah.
You know, circuit.
Lack of melatonin being produced.
Yeah, like, you know, now I'm on Instagram getting emotionally aroused because I'm trying to, you know, measure up or compare to different people's scholarship offers or what have you. Oh, this kid ain't as good as me. Why does he have more offers than I do? Whatever it is, and now you're really not going to fall asleep. So have a cutoff time.
Yeah.
Have a cutoff time.
I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Steady Freddy, the impact that you've been able to have with him this summer. Obviously, this podcast started in Ontario. He was a Toronto Raptor for years. Stayed true to believing in himself. What's his quote? I'm gonna
bet on yourself.
Bet on yourself. Thank you.
Bet on yourself.
What's it been like working with a guy like him?
Consummate professional. He actually cares about the people around him that are servicing him. For instance, how you doing today, Mike G? Believe it or not, that's a question that is not asked often. How's your wife? Once again, not another question that's asked to me as often as you would think. So, you know, like, you try not to emotionally attach yourself to this job because at the end of the day, it is a job, but we're human and we have feelings and we have emotions, but we try to understand the rhythm of the demographic that we're working with. He lives outside of that demographic. He is a outlier. He cares about his people, and I think a lot of that comes from where he comes from. He's from Rockford, Illinois, blue-collar city, got it out the mud. And that's a phrase that young kids use to describe struggle, but I think literally out the mud. Like, I've been to his hometown, and to understand where someone comes from is to truly understand where they're headed or where they're at. And I see why he is who he is. Yeah. You know, it was a rough area, rough city. Again, undersized, didn't really have the measurables, but still figured it out. So in a lot of terms and a lot of similarities. He and I shared a similar path.
Yeah.
So I can attach myself to that. And I've always said, even prior to working with him, I would love to work with him. He stands for everything that I stand for. And now that this actually came to fruition, it's that and more. Because he's humble, he's caring, he's just one of my favorite people. Not just people to work with, people. And, this is our second year, and I hope that this is just probably the second year of many more, hopefully to the end of his career.
Shout out to Freddie. And the other good people we got to shine light on is Joe Gajana, who made this introduction.
Yeah, for sure.
You're incorporating flowetry with a guy like DeAndre Jordan, who's 7'1".
Yeah.
He's moving around like he looks like he's 22 again. Like,
right.
You want to just touch on what that has looked like, incorporating that into your routines as well?
Well, I just need to be honest and say Jana is an amazing spirit. She is such a quality presence to be around. And then you combine that with her practice. She's taken me through multiple sessions. She's an amazing teacher. She's an amazing light and energy. And NBA athletes trust her because of who she is as a person, but also her work. Mm-hmm. So just being able to do that with her and collaborate with her on that. We also have a piece of video content that we're going to share with the world, in which she brought me through a session and we documented. It's going to be really cool. I think she just makes yoga-like practice really interesting, fun, and achievable for NBA athletes. These guys aren't built for yoga. Mm-hmm. They're just simply not. Their levers aren't. They're oddly shaped humans. They're very inflexible and tight in areas that are required for yoga to be done effectively. But she has figured out a way to make it fit a 6'11", 7'1" basketball player. Mm-hmm. So genius, right? Like, just wow.
Couldn't say it any better myself.
Good job.
Coach Mike, I can't thank you enough for coming on this podcast.
Oh, we're done?
The way we wrap up is we usually ask our guests what their biggest piece of advice is for the next gen. Okay. I feel like you've shared a million tidbits here today that we could clip up, but where can people find you to consume more of your content? And is there anything else you'd like to leave our audience with here today?
Well, number one, I think a lot of people are consuming most of the content on my Instagram, which is at Mr. Do It Moving. And because I'm married to an amazing creative who is just elite in her craft, we have basically a media company. And y'all can you can find that and tune into our YouTube, which is at GBG Hoops, where you'll find different categories of content. We have training content, we have interview content, we have game content, we have all types of cool content and categories where you can really fall into the rabbit hole of YouTube, but GBG style. And of course, our Instagram, gbg.hoops. We're posting all types of educational pieces. Go check it out, go subscribe, go tap in and make sure that you get this free information, because that's what it is. It's free value that I'm trying to provide for anyone that's willing to listen and watch. So piece of advice I would say for our next generation is be relentlessly fearless in standing in the shoes that God gave you and be who you are. That's one of the things that I have taken to heart. Like, I am who I am. I'm confident in who I am, and I'm extremely unafraid to be that. And I think that that's very inspirational to a lot of people that look like me. So I, in a sense, am some people's North Star that I didn't have. But you never know. You could be someone's North Star in a few years as well. So stand firm in that position.
Dude, you're an inspiration to me. I'm honored to be able to feature you on the show. I can't thank you enough, man. Appreciate it, Mike.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
That was dope. Hey, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Athletes Podcast featuring Coach Mike G. It was an honor to feature him on the show. Big shout out goes to him for graciously giving us an hour of his time. Big shout out to these skateboarders for doing their part in wrapping up this video. Again, such an honor to be able to chat with Mike. Drop your favorite moment from this podcast on the show. Let us know down below. Don't forget about our athlete agreement. It means the world for us for tuning in to the Athletes Podcast. We can't wait to see you next week for another new episode. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.